intellectually, I get there's no separate self. I look, I can't find it. But as you say, I don't have that direct experience.
Mm-hmm. Very good. This is actually a very, very common question. Intellectual understanding is something that the mind understands based on other people's descriptions and experiences. The seeing, it would be what you see and you can describe in your own words from your own experience. That's the difference. So if you are saying that you don't have that experience, but you understand it, well, how would you define it that no self in your experience by looking at what's happening in your experience? What does it look like?
Well, for me, I mean, I've looked to find the supposed non-existent self,
Uh-huh.
and I can't find it. Now, it's not in my head, it's not in my body, it's not floating around. So I can't find that self. But not finding it is not sufficient to have the experience that it doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes. Perfectly clear. Yes. It's not enough because when you are looking, there is an assumption that there is something to find. And there is some vague idea what it would look like.
Yes.
Right. But, right. Let's go to like the very basic, very, very simple thing, this Santa Claus example. Okay. So when a little kid believes that there is Santa, and parents tell him that there is Santa and brings presents, some magical creature lives up north. And then one day he finds out that there never was any Santa. It was just a guy or dad or some neighbor or somebody dressed in a costume that plays Santa, that appears as Santa. Now, that understanding or that realization for the little kid, it's literally a drop of a belief. He was believing in some magical creature, and then he wasn't anymore. Did he need to go to look for Santa to know that?
No.
Why not?
With regard to Santa,
Mm-hmm.
I think what would happen for the kid is he would discover his uncle or discover his parents, or he would have some experience
Mm-hmm.
that would tell him there's no Santa.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know. I think that if his friends said, "Hey, Santa Claus doesn't exist," that wouldn't be sufficient.
Well, for me, that
Although
was
I
literally.
don't know. Maybe if enough friends told him that, it would be sufficient. Again, I don't know. Do
Uh-huh.
not know.
Right. But once once the recognition happens, it's literally a drop of belief in magical creature and recognizing that there never was anything to even look for. Like
Right.
to recognize that Santa is not real, he did not need to go to the North Pole to look for it. He recognized there was an uncle, there was a neighbor or something. He recognized the reality. The fictional self is just like this Santa. So yes, we can go and look for it and we can all find it, but that is not enough because the answer is that there's nothing even to look for. It's kind of on a different level. There's nothing to look for. So now when we are looking for an absence of something, anything, how do you see an absence of something? Let's say here's a cup, okay? Cup. Do you see an absence of a cup?
I don't see the absence of a cup.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the cup before,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it down, so it's no longer visible in the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I can't see the cup in the screen
Mm-hmm.
doesn't imply that the cup doesn't exist.
Yes, that's true. But do you
So,
see an absence of it?
no, I can't see an absence of it. How do you see an absence of something?
Exactly. So when we are looking for this no self, it's like looking for an absence of something. You can't see an absence of something. You can't see an absence of a self because the self, like Santa, is already imagined, even further. So it's literally looking for something that doesn't exist. And you cannot find it because there's nothing even to look for. That's the twist in the story. So we can see what is here, what is showing up in perception. You can see that through the perception channels. We can also see or know of emotions, thoughts, and images. We know, or I know, that there is something existing. There's existing. Something is. Yes, something is. I am. Being is. Presence is. Here now is. That's it. Can't see something that isn't. Because if I ask you now, George, if I ask you now, how do you know that there is this separate self? What's the evidence that there is something to find, something to even look for?
That's a great question. And my first answer would be, well, I have a feeling that there's a separate self, but that's not a good answer because then you'd ask me, well, what is that feeling? So again, let me give you another answer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have the experience, I call it an experience, of me here and you there. I have the experience that I can do things, that I can make choices. I mean, even though intellectually I know that's not quite true, but it seems that I can make choices.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that I'm separate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can leave the room and you'll still be there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my evidence of a separate self.
Okay, the next question would be the separate self. What is it separate from? Because we hear the separate self, separate self. What is this actually separate from?
Okay, the separate self
Mm-hmm.
that I feel is here
Mm-hmm.
is it's separate from you. It's separate from the rest of the world. I'm looking at my computer,
Mm-hmm.
and there's my computer over there,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a separate self over here.
Where?
Okay, good question.
Everything
Okay,
is here. The computer is here. This talking head is here. This group is here. This body is here. Everything is here.
yes, I can get that. Intellectually, it's all it's all here in my perception.
Right?
So I can understand that intellectually.
Okay, now let's look not intellectually, because intellectually, as I said before, is something that you learned from somebody else. Experientially, describe what you see.
Well, I see colors
Mhm.
and I interpret those colors as physical objects. So I see this rectangle in front of me that's black, and I interpret that as my screen.
Mhm.
And then I see an image, some images on the screen, and I interpret one of those images as being you. And these other people, I can see them on my screen also.
Right. Are they this whatever colors and people are outside of here and now? Are they separate from here and now? From your perception that is happening right here, right now?
No, they are not. They are here and now.
Right.
Only intellectually is there a past and a future. They are all here now.
So let's say like this, experientially, everything is here now.
Yes.
Intellectually, there is somebody here separate from something.
Yes.
Kind of opposite. Experientially, everything's here now. Intellectually, there's something missing. There's separateness.
There's there right now there are things existing right now,
Yes.
but among the things that seem to be existing right now is the separate self. So I'm
Right. I
kind
can't
of
really see it because there's nothing to see. It's just an idea. So experientially, it's always been this. Idea says, oh, there is a separate self. Somehow I need to see through it. I need to get rid of it. I need to connect. I need this. I need that. That's the intellectual part. The experiential part, that everything's here. Everything's happening in the presence right now. There's nothing separate from right now.
right.
The power of the mind is override experience through, and put it into some kind of concept. The power of mind is to deny the experience while looking through some belief.
Yes, but I need that power of mind. For example, I see these colors
Mhm.
and I need the power of mind to interpret those colors as people, images of people.
Yes.
I need the mind. I need
Yes.
the mind to make that interpretation.
Yes.
So I mean, the raw experience is sort of not sufficient. I have to live in some kind of interpretation.
Okay. I agree. But what about just born babies? Just born babies,
Okay.
they don't have language. They still see the colors. They still have experiences. There's still life going on. There is no language. There is no interpretation. But they cry and laugh and eat and poop and do other things.
Yes, I understand that. I also seem to get that for them, there's no separate self. Okay.
Right. They don't feel separate or know even of separate or know of self because there is no language there.
Right. They may not even know where their body is or that they have a body. Yes. But I wouldn't exist very long if I regressed back to that state. Well, I
Yeah,
would exist.
we don't need to, but we can recognize that the language, the overlay of language that is defining this is a lamp, this is a computer, this is a head, this is a hand, that is separating objects by naming them while everything is already whole, unified, and there is no separateness in experience. Like colors are not separate. They're all colors. Perception of colors is not separating color black from white or blue and red. It's all one visual field. Like that computer screen now. There are so many colors on the computer screen. The colors are not separate. They define the edge. They define the form. We look at this, okay, microphone. Oh, that's lamp. Oh, that's a plant. Just naming parts of the whole and putting labels onto them. And then that label becomes a separate thing. But everything's here now already. Nothing is separate from here now. Nothing is separate from awareness or knowing of it. Even labeling is part of it. So if not the mind saying that there is something wrong here, there is nothing wrong. There's nothing else but this.
I hate to say this, but I have the experience that it's hopeless for me. I just, what you say is not new.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to have the, it doesn't seem to have the impact.
Right. And what would need to change? Here's the mind coming. Yeah. Maybe nothing needs to change. It's just recognizing what is obvious, what has always been here, and it's always been the same.
Yes. So you're suggesting, I think, as a technique, just to be aware of the present without anything added. Is that right?
It's not a technique. It's recognizing the experiencing and overlay of concepts, that it's not the same. That there is this direct perceiving going on, plus labeling going on, and that labeling is separating what is being perceived into separate things just by labeling it. And seeing that is one big step. Like, okay, what is this? What is this?
Well, I would call that a cup.
Aha. Yes. Now, if I say, okay, here's a cup in my hand. Do you know how the cup looks like? It's like this, and I can drink tea. There's nothing there because we are talking now not about this, but about a concept. And that concept in itself has got no weight, no color, no nothing. You can't even see an absence of a cup because all what we're talking about is just an idea of a cup. Can't drink tea of idea of a cup. But that's what happened with the separate self. The idea of a self, you can talk about it 100 times, 1,000 times. Still, it doesn't become anything because there's nothing there. It's a concept. The actuality is so much richer and fuller, and everything's going on here. And that's the experience. But what I understand about the cup, or what I understand about self and no self, can never reach that, can never define it. Because we forget that it's just an idea. Like Santa Claus is an idea. It's nothing that, you can't find it. You don't even need to look for it. And nothing changes if you see it or not. Nothing changes in reality, in actual experience.
With regard to Santa Claus, at the time that a child believes in Santa Claus and he goes to the mall or someplace,
Mhm.
and he sees this person in a Santa Claus outfit,
Yeah.
okay?
Uh-huh.
And he says, oh, strange, why is Santa Claus here in this mall? But he sees, he interprets that person in a red suit as Santa Claus, because that's what he has been told.
Yeah.
Person in red suit with beard, Santa Claus.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to break that illusion unless he went into the men's room with Santa Claus and Santa Claus took off his suit or something. I don't know.
Okay, well, we can recognize that idea of a Santa, like a character Santa. Somebody is being dressed up as a Santa, and the kid says, that's Santa Claus. Another kid will say, yeah, the Santa is a magical creature. He lives up north, and one night a year brings presents to good kids that believe in that magical creature. Is no longer than that first kid who can still see Santa Claus. But know that it's not a magical thing. It's nothing there. It's just a show. See, I can see a guy dressed in red and I say that's Santa Claus. I don't have that belief that this is like some magical woo-woo, out of reality, supernatural thing. So that belief drops. Santa remains. The idea of Santa remains, Christmas remains, everything remains as always. So now in this seeking to recognize through the self or through the seeing the illusion of the self is like, right, I heard somewhere that the I doesn't exist, or that there is no you, or that there is no self. That's the idea, and that's what brings up all the search to find out the truth of it. The truth is there is nothing there to find. What we have is the actual experience, the reality, unified. There's no magical creature there running the show. The show goes on. There's nobody running it. And no matter how long you can look for it or where you're going to look for it, there's nothing to find. At some point, you have to give up. Like, okay, what's here rather than what's not here? How can I see something that doesn't exist? How can I see an absence of something that doesn't exist? It's okay, what's here?
Okay, I notice there are two other people with their hands up. So
Okay.
let me defer to you or them.
Okay. Well, thank you, George. That was a great
Oh.
question because it's so many people are in the same situation.
Well, thank you, but I still feel this frustration that I still don't get it. I still have not dropped that illusion, but okay, it may take me a while.
Okay. Yeah, we can agree with that. It drops when it drops.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Right. I have Ali and Doug. Ali was first. Please, Ali. Come in.
Okay, so my question, well, one of my question was, would you say that the dropping of the illusion of self is quite highly correlated with the reduction or the dropping of thought.
The particular thought, yes.
No, not a particular, generally
Yes.
thinking,
No.
overthinking.
No.
So even if somebody is continuously thinking, the illusion of self can drop.
Right. Okay. The way I see it is that the illusion of self is the illusion that there is a doer, that there's somebody here inside the body, inside the system, making things happening, doing things. Seeing through is seeing that there's nothing there. Don't even need to look for it. You know that there's nothing there. Everything is flowing freely. Everything, including colors, sounds, sensations, thoughts, and images and emotions. Everything is flowing freely.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes.
But
so it doesn't mean that when you see that everything is flowing freely, some part of it is going to switch off.
but in
Continuous.
actual life, in actual practice,
Yeah. So there are two
people,
things going on. There is seeing that there's nobody doing anything, that everything is flowing freely. And another thing is to reduce the noise. The noise is all these patterns that are no longer serving and they want to be released. They want to go home, but they need your attention. That's why they keep calling. The noise. That's what reduces the thinking. When that noise is attended. In fact, if you see that there is no self, the thought processes can even get higher and bigger and grander and can't even sleep anymore because there's so much going on. Because the belief system has been challenged so much that everything has to be rebuilt. The structure has to be rebuilt. But then there are moments of silence. Moments that may last a minute, 2 minutes, half an hour, 3 months, I don't know. But there is this silence that opens up. And then it's going back to the noise, because the noise is still here. And then there is more silence. Then there is more noise, more silence, more noise. And through that, waving, flip-flopping, the noise is getting reduced. But it's not like I see that everything is happening by itself. That means the thought process is going to end somehow.
So in general, if a person has the self has dropped off, the illusion of self has dropped off, then would you say that is more likely than the person has a lot of silence in the mind and relatively fewer, not no thinking. There will be periods of a lot of thought, but generally compared to what the person was previously or what other people usually are, the person will have fewer thoughts. And sometimes a lot of noise, as you say, it's relearning certain things and whatever.
Yeah, yes, yes. Yes, and it's all unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
Okay,
silence
one,
is here, is wonderful, but the
yeah,
noise still needs to be attended.
absolutely.
Kind of seeing that there is this flow of experiencing is not my doing. It's not something that I am controlling. It gives a little bit more space to look at what's arising with, let's say, maybe less resistance or less holding on. They're still holding on, but maybe it's a little bit less. So it gives a little bit more space to look at stuff. Yeah. And there can also be like big experiences of silence, stillness, samadhi, bliss. That's not excluded. It can happen. Doesn't have to for everyone. Doesn't have for everyone. But if that's here, it's great. If it's not here, it's great. It doesn't matter how it is for others. It's how it is here. That's it. And really seeing through this illusion is just a tiny first step. It's an opening. A beginning.
Yeah, and then the silence increases and the thoughts become more meaningful. So the thought is related to something actual, not just talking to oneself.
Can be. And it can happen in maybe 10 years either. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Once the opening happens, it happens. The rest is just unfolding. Like if the mind is not silent all the time, it doesn't mean that you don't see that there is no separate self.
But maybe to the extent that your mind is chattering, you think of the no separate self as a kind of an intellectual idea. To the extent that your mind has quietened down, you see the no separate self as a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is actually the thoughts that define you as separate.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And in the moment of seeing, the mind is.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug, please. Can you unmute your microphone? I cannot hear you.
Thank
Yay.
you. Forgot
Yay.
about that.
Here we are.
I wanted to ask you a question about if this is sort of a portal into no self. When I go to bed at night, I listen to some relaxing music to help me fall asleep. And when I do it, I use earbuds. And when I use earbuds and I close my eyes, there's just it feels like on one level I could say the music's originating internally. It's not like there's a speaker over there and I hear it on the other side of the room, but it's all internal, the music. And I can't find a separation and I can't find a listener and a sound. It's just one thing happening. And I'm curious if this is um, more or less, I mean, I can't find a self there.
But
When
you
I'm
are
listening to
having that
music.
experience, right?
It's like an experience where, yes, there's just music.
Yeah. And you know of
And
that
or
music,
there's
right?
just hearing. What's
Yeah.
that?
And you are hearing, you know of that music. You are here.
Yes.
Yes. You can't find
So
a separate self, or you can't find the listener because you are it.
yeah, there's just listening
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah.
And then where I
Sorry.
get a little bit because so for several minutes it could just be this open listening without feeling any sense of being separate from the sound or anything. But then thoughts will pop up and maybe for a minute or so I'm off on I'm hearing the music, but then there's like some thoughts going on, and then there'll be a thought, oh, I want to go back to just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it almost feels like there's a self that makes a choice to go back to listening.
Yeah. It seems like that's true. It seems like. Yeah. But is that self a voice in the head? Or is that self a thought?
It's a subtle thought that says, well, it says, if you want to fall asleep, you got to go back to listening to this tape.
Right. So how do you
And
experience that? As a thought.
as a thought,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. What I was just saying a little bit earlier, that you are here. You are here. Not as a thought, not as an image, not as a body, not as an emotion or color or sound. You
Yeah.
are here as this, as space, as nowness, as being. Like, you know you are here. And it's so simple to see that. It's so obvious and it's always on, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, do you see my hand? Do you see my hand?
Yes.
You see my hand. Do you know that you see my hand?
Yes.
That's it. So you are here. The music is here, right? Music flows freely. There is listening. There is no thought. And then a thought is here. A thought comes in. It's another experience. You are here. The thought comes in. And it goes. So that thought is claiming to be a self. It's not a self. It's not doing anything. It's just passing by. Yes, it's for me, it's very interesting how in the narrative, the self is being credited with just anything, doing, hearing, listening, talking, the self, which is just an idea, there's nothing there, is being credited with all the action, with all the doing. For me, it looks like this. If you watch the cartoon, and there is a cartoon character here and a cartoon character here, and they interacting and talking, then you say, yeah, that cartoon character told something to that cartoon character. That Mickey Mouse told something to the cat. But the Mickey Mouse cannot talk. And it seems like it. It appears as if, and we take into that and we play with that, but that little drawing is not talking. There's nothing there to talk. So the self that is doing something, or it comes in and says something, it's just like that cartoon character.
Mm.
Yet you're here, seeing the show, watching the show, being present, so everything can show up.
It's just, I mean, awareness is here, and it's sort of, there's not really a distinction between awareness and what's arising. It's almost like just like a holistic unfolding. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's same way like you cannot separate waves from the ocean. What would be a wave
Yeah.
without the ocean? Doesn't
Yeah.
exist. The ocean can be without waves. And with waves, it's the same ocean. But the wave cannot be without the ocean. So experience cannot be without you.
Mm. Yeah, and same thing, you know, at when I fall into deep sleep at night, the world disappears and I seem to disappear. And then wake up in the morning and gradually it all reappears again. Problems come back, the hopes come back, the room reappears, but for the period where I'm in deep sleep, there's just it's like a little vacation from all that. But there's no one sleep. There's my experience is there's no one sleeping. There's just non-experiencing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The experience without content, or experiencing nothing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I know language, it's so funny, you know, we can wrap it up in different words and it has such a different meaning. Like there's no experience or there's experience of nothing. The being is, there is no experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's experience of nothing. It feels so good though. Sleep, deep sleep.
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Wanted to keep going with this looking
Uh-huh.
just to get clear or whatever. But you said the beginning, the recognition is the beginning.
Mhm.
And a very loud question just come up, like beginning of what? Because I'm still what keeps coming up is that question of, I guess it's that belief that something meaningful and a shift, something tangible that you can go before and after.
Yeah.
This gradual disappearing and the going in and out and in and out is just so disappointing. Because
Okay, but it's the
like,
beginning of that. Going in
of
and
the
out.
in and out.
Yeah, because before it wasn't in and out, it was just up.
Oh.
So it's a beginning of going in and out.
So is there a moment where, God, I feel like I've asked this question before, you know, just like a shift, like something, you know, like you hear people say, oh, I got it, you know, like that. Like, does that happen? It's just going to be like, oh, okay, you know, gradual. Like, is there a moment of like where the way you see yourself or the self completely changes and you can never be taken by the thought I?
Yes. But that moment may be missed, may not be so visible like aha moment or fireworks.
Mm.
Like if you really look at this, it's a drop of a belief. How a belief drops. It's believed, it's reinforced by evidence. There is something there that is saying, aha, this is how it is, this is how it is. I know that because this is showing up, and then suddenly it doesn't add up somehow anymore. Would you call this a shift? Yes, because something no longer makes sense. And then there is a beginning of seeing everything differently, yes. But then everything needs to be looked at to see differently. And that's the beginning of exploring. The end the end of seeking is the end of desperation, of that curiosity or that movement to find out, to understand or know what's going on. But seeking is desperate. It's like, I'm missing something. Somebody else got it. I don't have it. I'm desperate. I want it. I want something that they have. Right? The shift is that desperation is no longer there. The exploration is continuous. And it's kind of curious, interesting, maybe even joyful. Not always, but it's not looking for something out there anymore. It's knowing where to explore. And going in and out is just part of the unfolding, part of the process. In contraction, out into expansion and silence and being and just yeah. And then back into the noise. So the more noise can resolve and being like, openness again. So it's the beginning of that harmonica to play. And it may have started maybe even years ago.
That's actually what I was wondering. Like, well, I think this has been happening.
Right, where's that shift? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, where's the, what comes up for me is that image of Edgar Tolle's experience, like it's got to be that wow.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
let me ask you, are you a Tolle?
No. And I know I do get that this is unique and it's gonna be as it is.
Yeah.
And it's a mystery, so it won't, yeah. I think, yeah, it's like I'm beginning to see why yogis and stuff would go into caves and just kind of separate. Because I think it feels like just the word you know, like we have to use it. It's functional. But the way it's heard, it's yeah, I can see that shifting. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that in daily life, when you are in communication with someone else and you're talking, and then if you're in your head and all this stuff is showing up, it just feels so regular, like it's not anything different. And you get caught up in the story and the blame or whatever is showing up. Like some of these energies are have the capacity to draw you into identification with it.
Right.
Well, that sucks.
But that's the noise.
Yes, that's the noise.
And the noise really is an invitation.
Yeah.
Knock, 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 knock. It's my time. You're gonna look here or not. Keep knocking.
Yeah, I suppose it's just that it's not always recognized in the moment. So you live in the story of you defending or whatever, like normal. And then I suppose at some point you come back and you go, whoa. Yeah, I think what I'm doing is making that wrong. Like it shouldn't be happening. So I guess that's what I'm feeling like.
That is just another program, just another one of those programs that it shouldn't be happening. And because it's coming up and coming up and coming up, that's the one to really look at.
Yeah, I see that. So yeah, it's kind of exciting and kind of annoying at the same time.
Oh, but can you see how this is just the beginning? A beginning.
Yeah, the beginning of back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Let's say you read a book and the book ends, and then there is another book on the same, like a second book of the same story, but it's already like maybe 10 years later and everything is different. So it's not like a chapter 9 and then it's chapter 10. There is a shift, because in that first book there was this kind of story, and in the second book the story is like completely different, even though it's about the same characters, but different in a
But with
way
what?
how it's perceived, how life is perceived, how stuff that is arising is perceived, like what you do with it. It's just unconscious running away from stuff, or is it able to meet it, to look at it? Things can change in magical ways beyond what the first book was capable. The character in the first book was capable or even imagined.
Well, that was my question was going to be like, oh, what's the difference? So the difference in the second book is that it's recognized as a story. So the character continues
For a while. Yeah.
having experiences. Yeah. For a while.
Yeah.
What do you mean for a while?
It's undoing. Everything's undoing.
Yeah. But I don't see an end to the character if you're going to live here.
Wow. Somebody else will always see you as a character.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
My cat has got a character. It's not something inside the cat that has the character. There's no cat inside the cat. But I can still observe the character, the likes, dislikes, and the behaviors. But it's not something like an entity that is running it.
That's right.
The first book was about the entity running it, going against the hill, trying hard. The second book is like, oh.
It's more like life unfolding without a controller. I suppose what I mean by character is it's habits and conditioning. It's a dynamic energy playing out, and then we call it a character because likes and dislikes and how it shows up to other people in relation. You can call it a character, but then that there's nothing solid there. It's just life unfolded. Is that right?
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of get that. It's when you were talking to George about a separate self. Yeah. Because I think that's the key. Like, Nisargadatta Maharaj or Ramana Maharshi, they would use the word self with a capital S.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that spaciousness, is just that beingness that you feel is you. But then that you is not separate from here and now. It's not separate from life itself, because that's just it. That's just it. So when you say there's no separate self, it just makes sense that it can't be, it can't exist, because it would have to be somewhere else. And it's pretty obvious that it's always here now. Where would that entity that's separate from here and now be to live outside of the here and now?
Yeah.
Right? So it logically almost it can't be. Like what you feel yourself to be is the here and now. Is that right?
Right.
Because that's kind of what I'm seeing. I suppose I'm just talking because I'm wanting to get clear and get confirmation.
Wonderful.
But somehow it makes sense because it's my experience. It's like, yeah, whatever that I is, it isn't separate. And that seems pretty obvious now.
Yeah. And we can use word God. Okay, let's use word God. God is. God is everywhere at the same time. There's only God. There's nothing but God. That
Ooh, that's a tough one.
consciousness is God. Just a word, okay? Just a word. It's a useful word in this situation. So there is nothing but God. And here I am. Here is this beingness. Is this beingness separate from everything that is?
No,
Is it even possible?
it's impossible.
No. So these words are only pointing to that united oneness, infinite being. What are the words? Divine intelligence, presence, here now, existence, consciousness. But again, let's take the concepts away and just see what they're pointing to, and they're pointing to this. Now let's say this is separate from God, or this is separate from consciousness.
No,
Doesn't
that's
add up.
impossible. It doesn't add up. So I've been noticing, like when you were talking, I can see it and making sense, and I feel like an excitement, like, oh, okay. But my mind is not excited. I could see all kinds of thoughts about imperfection or a lack.
Yeah. And even these thoughts are included.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts that say imperfection are perfectly included.
It's stuff you hear, like just words taken on, and then becomes expectations or things to look for. Like, how, I don't even know if I want to go there. I was going to tell you what's in my head, but I don't want to confuse and get, so I was talking to Lisa Kantz, and somebody had asked a question, and she was asking, and she was relating her experience. And I haven't had that experience, so it was like it's completely mental for me. And it was like, oh, it's like whatever I was came out, and it went into everything. It sounded so fantastical, and it was like a melting into everything, like out of the body, like some experience that I haven't had. Or if I've had, I haven't I don't remember it. And so my mind will bring up those ideas that I heard from someone else's experience and says, okay, it's lacking, okay, because you still feel separate. You still feel like you're here and everything's outside. You're not melting into everything. You know, like people say, oh, I looked at the moon and I thought I knew I was the moon. You know, I've heard that. I think the guy that did the Samadhi movies, I had let go of all these thoughts and all of other people's experiences that are stuck in my system, and my mind is bringing up past lack. It's like, oh, you're not, you know, like they tend to be so catchy. Like,
if you want to, but okay, if you read some books about yogis, true yogis in India, and where they levitate, being in two places at the same time, and God knows what else, then you look at your experience, it's like, what is this? It's lacking. But I'm not a yogi. I'm here in this experience. This is how it shows up. Is that enough?
yeah, I suppose I'm not feeling that's enough.
Right.
Like,
So
no,
that,
I want a crazy experience. So
yeah,
it's
then you should read some
egoic
books
thing.
about yogis and see what else is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe this will be enough, because you know that
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna show up the same way for you like it's showing up for somebody else. Just go to the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like being
I
human
think that's
on this.
old programming.
Yes, being human here, there are so many possibilities and capabilities that my mind doesn't even imagine. And if I read or hear somebody talking about some fantastic experiences and I want that, I mean, do you want their path? Have you walked in their shoes? No. You have your own path.
Mm-hmm. It's not wanting other people's path. It's the expectation that that's supposed to happen.
No. It's supposed to happen for them on their path. Otherwise,
Yeah, I think
I'm waiting to start levitating and it's not happening yet. And I want to teleport and it's not happening yet. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah, but those are like really extraordinary. But the melting into everything seems like it's supposed to happen.
Wow.
Not the levitating.
Same thing. It's just another experience.
So that's not an experience everybody has.
Well, let's ask people here. How many of you levitated? Been in two places at the same time or melted into the moon?
Anybody? Josh? Okay. Yeah, it's time to let that go.
Oh, poof, out of the window.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. So much more space when there are no ideas how this should be. Now I want to melt into the moon. I'm gonna go outside today and try it.
All right. Well, I guess I'll let somebody else talk. There's another question come up. I'll be here the whole time, but it's like, what happened to that existential fear that everybody has to happen?
Not
That's like
everybody.
when Achajanti said so. He was like,
I think Ashanti said so.
Mhm.
Here we go again.
It seems too good to be true.
You know, nobody knows how it should be for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I have to trust that. Suppose that's what everybody says, not knowing.
So the second book, when it starts, we don't know what's going to be in the end. But then so many adventures are waiting. And the job is to be present to whatever is coming up.
That's it. That makes so much sense. Because that's actuality. That's reality. That's actually living.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Live your experience.
Yeah. And then it'll be what it is. You have no way of knowing. And you can't look around to other people's experiences. Yeah, I can see that that's what I've been doing. And looking around. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think most confusing thing in all this search for self, no self is the word self itself. Like, what does that word even mean? Self. The capital S self, the small self, the separate self, the no self, myself, yourself. What is that thing that the word self points to? I like itself. What is itself? It's just happening. It's just happening. It's not being done. It's a happening. It's not done. It is. It's not moving. It is. It's not changing. It is. And then that is connecting to the experience. What is the experience of something that doesn't move, doesn't change, and is? Is meaning it's always on. Is. And here we are. And before I go, I posted the interview with Pamela Wilson on my podcast, on my channel. I recommend that one. just because I love Pamela and it was wonderful to speak to her, and she shared a lot and very deep stuff. So if you have missed that, look it up on YouTube. And thank you. Bye for now. See you soon.
Bye.